Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another third-party unlicensed 1/6 scale figure unboxing and review. Today, we're taking a look at the Eternal Toys Gentleman of Crime, aka Danny DeVito's Penguin based off his appearance in Batman Returns. Now, I got mine as a review sample from Eternal Toys, organized by 1/6 Kit. I have popped the link to Kit's site in the description below for your reference purposes only. This is by no means a promotional video, this is a review. I have not been asked to only say good things, all opinions, as always, are 100% my own. If you are heading down to the description, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, so you're notified as soon as a brand new 1/6 scale figure review goes live on the channel. As for the box art, it's a really nice callback to one of Penguin's umbrellas, the one that he said would give Max Schreck a splitting headache. The white sections are done in high gloss and more of an off-white, whereas the black circles, they're done in more of a satin finish. Then down below, Gentleman of Crime. On the side of the box, Gentleman of Crime once more, and those circles that we saw on the front of the box do wrap around over the edge. Around the back, an Eternal Toys logo, his name, warnings and legal information, as well as a silhouetted image of Penguin holding his splitting headache umbrella, and a veritable army of penguins. If only there was a way to buy the penguins that come included with this guy separately, so we could assemble ourselves a 1/6 scale army of penguins. I don't mean to make it sound like I'm complaining already. I'm not. It's like the opposite of complaining. I want more of what's included in the set. Like an accessory kit or something, with this diorama rock display base and more penguins. Maybe it's something Eternal Toys can consider in the future. On the slipcover, an image of the figure himself, his penguins, and the diorama display base that is not included, as well as his name down below. I've been waiting for years for a Danny DeVito penguin. Yes, there have been customs, but those runs are, number one, insanely expensive, and number two, they sell out very quickly, so if you miss the boat on them and you want to pick one up on the aftermarket, yeah, fat chance of that, they're going to be even more expensive. So luckily, Eternal Toys to the rescue, it seems. First in-hand impressions? So far so good, this is 100% a bespoke body for Penguin, as it should be. What we are going to do now, though, is get all of Penguin's accessories, as well as his penguins, laid out in the light box, and take a closer look at everything he comes with. Starting off with the display base first. While I like that one is included, it would have been really cool if we'd gotten that rock diorama base that we saw pictured with the prototype. This does get the job done, though. It's that classic old-school Hot Toys oval style base, with a much shorter crotch grabber arm than usual. The crotch grabber itself is still adjustable, and that's because Penguin is quite a lot shorter than a standard 1/6 scale figure, so they've shrunk it down a bit. Now, for me personally, I didn't think this display base was going to cut it, so I opted for a custom printed base. I designed the artwork using the promotional images from Batman Returns. This is like the image from the poster of the Penguin. I popped the Bat logo around the front with the snow effect for Batman Returns, and instead of going with Penguin for the nameplate, I popped the film logo on there. I also made one for Catwoman and Batman, so everything is nice and uniform. The only issue with my custom base is the crotch grabber arm is a little bit too tall for Penguin. Luckily, he stands perfectly fine without it, so I'm going to ditch the arm and just have him standing on the base. When this guy first came out, it seemed like nobody was happy with the hat. Every day, I saw posts in the 1/6 Kit Facebook group saying that Eternal Toys needs to do something about the hat, because it is terrible. And yes, it's wonky, it's lopsided, and it's a little bit squishy. The material doesn't hug the inner structure of the hat super well. But I'm okay with all that, because the Penguin looks nasty all the time, so his hat should look disheveled just like the rest of his outfit. I do also like the ribbon down below. But if you did want to get a replacement hat, this one I got from AliExpress for $8. The structure is a lot more sturdy, it's not anywhere near as wonky as the stock one, and it's flocked, plus you still have the ribbon down below. It will also pop onto Penguin's head. I'll show you what they both look like on him a little bit later. You can't really make a penguin without giving us penguins, so I'm glad that they decided to give us some. They are two completely different molds. It's not like they just made one and then blew it up for the larger penguin. This guy has his tail sticking up and he's angled slightly forward so his rocket looks like it's about to launch, whereas the larger one is just standing straight up and down. The rockets are also bespoke for each penguin. This one is a smaller missile versus this one, as you can see, it's a lot larger. There is some surface detail with pitting and weathering. Also, the markings are different between the two penguins. The larger one has some yellowish shading behind his head, whereas the smaller one just doesn't have that. Also, his flipper is sticking out. They're made of this slightly softer rubbery plastic, so I don't think they're gonna break if they happen to take a shelf dive. The harness has this leather grain texture to it, also the studs are all individually painted. And you even have some glossy black paint for the eyes, so it does stand out against all of that matte textured black fur. The only thing that I would have liked to have seen here would have been a blast effect for the rocket, so we could have made it look like they're about to fire. Normally when we get a 1/6 scale umbrella, it's just sculpted plastic. As you can see, this one is fabric, but it actually has a party piece. The internal structure is all made of die cast. There's this metal buckle that you can undo, and then you can open up the umbrella. Just like a real one, there's that mechanism on the inside that holds it up and in place. And now you have the umbrella open. You can see that pattern, and there's even some weathering on the white sections, making this thing look really nasty. This is my favorite accessory of the set, even more so than the penguins themselves, just because it's actually functional, and I was not expecting that. Next up, he does come with his gnawed, chewed up salmon that Max Shrek gives him. The outside for the scales is nice and shiny and metallic, whereas the inside looks wet, red, and glossy. For one of his smaller accessories, he does come with a cigar. It's well painted for its teeny tiny size, and you can wedge it in between his teeth. Because the head sculpt is made of a slightly softer rubbery material, it goes in there no problem, and friction just holds it in place. And lastly, we get some very penguin-specific hands, ranging from these open palm gloved hands with this leather grain texture on the surface done in high gloss black, to gripping hands, also gloved, done in the same finish as the open palm ones, and some insanely detailed, just skin tone open palm hands already installed on him out of the box. There's some shading on the knuckles and the fingers, the nails are well painted, looking nice and dirty around the edges. There's even some vein work and wrinkling. These hands might be some of the most detailed third-party hands I've seen in a while. What we are going to do now, though, is get the penguin himself out here. Standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses, or accessories, or anything like that. You see, Eternal Toys were in a very unique position when they decided to make this guy. They had dealer's choice of what they wanted to do with him, because there are no other third-party Danny DeVito penguin figures. Yes, there are customs, but no relatively affordable, easy-to-find third-party offerings like this guy. So they didn't need to go as hard as they did with the custom body. They didn't need to give us accessories at all, really, like the penguins or the umbrella, or the salmon. They didn't need to weather the outfit as much as they did, and they certainly didn't need to give us rooted hair. But I'm glad they went ahead and gave us all of that stuff. They've not just made the only 1/6 scale third-party Danny DeVito penguin out there. They've also made a really good one. Up close and personal, kicking things off with Penguin's absolutely hideous head sculpt. But I, of course, mean that in the best way possible. This does look like Danny DeVito in the makeup and prosthetics from Batman Returns. He's got the big honkin' nose, he's got the wrinkles and the crow's feet and the chrome dome up on top, the redness under his eyes, and even the nasty looking teeth with the black ooze coming out of his mouth. But with all of that being said, it's not a perfect head sculpt. Unfortunately, there are a couple of things that I would have either liked to have seen changed or improved. Number one, the material choice for the sculpt. Instead of going with a more sturdy PVC, they've gone for this slightly rubbery material. And I know why, we'll get to that in just a second, but it comes across waxy and glossy looking, on his chin, on his nose, and on his forehead. If you do use some baby powder, you can dull down the shine a little, but over time it will come back. It almost reads as though it's a hybrid of silicon and rubber or something. So the reason why they did this was for the rooted hair. They wanted to go with plugged hair rather than gluing it onto the scalp around the top of his chrome dome. I don't love that either because now you can see the individual plugs and it's quite unsightly. At least the hair does feel high quality, and if you put a little bit of product through it, you can get it to look just as gross as the rest of the head sculpt. But he does, of course, come with the hat. So if you did want to pop this on to hide those little plugs, he does a decent job of that. Now, the hat is quite deformed, like we discussed in the accessory segment. So if you did want to go for one of the AliExpress offerings that look a little bit tidier, it will still pop on his head sculpt, but it doesn't sit quite as flush as the stock one does. For me personally, in my collection, I will be going with a hat, specifically this one. It's pretty rare that I can fit an entire 1/6 scale figure in frame like this. With Penguin, it is super easy, barely an inconvenience. And that's thanks to his custom, quite short but portly and rotund body. They had to go full on custom with this, and I'm glad they did, because an off the shelf body would not have been able to do the proportions of Penguin justice. This to me looks very accurate. Now the outfit on paper looks quite straightforward, but there's more to it than first meets the eye. He does have this long black jacket on, and it's wired down the front edge plus along the bottom, and it's split around the back. The pockets aren't real, they're just these faux flaps, but I'm okay with that because otherwise they might have come across a little bit bulky down below. You have these fur sections for the collar, or the lapels, I suppose, and around the cuffs for the suit jacket. Then you can see the cuffs of his onesie slash formal attire jumpsuit poking out from underneath the jacket. He also has this bib section, which is separate so you can move it around. There are some faux buttons on it, and there is weathering absolutely everywhere. There are even sections where there are straight up holes in the onesie, and you can see his body poking through. The skin tone does perfectly match the head sculpt and the hands. The hands, like we discussed in the accessory segment, very detailed. Then he's got this tattered two-piece tie thing around his collar. You could foreseeably remove that if you so choose. I prefer to leave it on. It is, after all, accurate to the look. Just quickly, I have popped his black glossy gloves on, because I think it completes this mayoral look for him, and I've reinstalled his top hat, the AliExpress one, which is my personal preference. If I am going to go with the jacket and the hat in my display, I will probably pair them up with the glossy gloved hands. I just think it works better for this particular outfit option. Now that we've ditched the jacket, I'm tempted to display him like this, honestly. Now that we can see the body so much better, the proportions become even more accurate, with the slope down at the shoulders and the massive rotund booty. There's even this slit around the back on his onesie. There are a couple more holes and gashes in the outfit that were otherwise hidden by the jacket, and a whole ton of weathering. You can even see that it's not just one color of weathering. They've not just gone with this darker grayish shading. There's also some lighter yellowish spots, which adds to the disheveled look and feel. Then coming down to the boots, normally I would complain about the lack of a split cut boot design. For Penguin, you'll see what I mean when we get to the articulation segment, doesn't actually matter all that much. The boots, at the very least, look good. They've got this mottled texture to them. They've got wrinkling sculpted in, the laces, stitching, and some dry brushing to make them look weathered too. On the underside, some fully sculpted tread. For a quick side-by-side comparison, I am so happy. For the longest time, this is what I've been waiting for, a third-party version of Penguin, so I can finally complete my Batman Returns setup. The Bat, the Cat, and the Penguin. We've had third-party versions of Catwoman from various different companies. This just happens to be the AC Play one. But never a Penguin. Not until finally Eternal Toys have now decided to give us one. Now, as you can see, Penguin is significantly shorter than both Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman and Michael Keaton's Batman. The scaling looks about right to me personally. I'm comfortable with how short he is. You can also see that all three of them are standing on my custom display bases I had made. Going over Penguin's articulation, I'm extremely curious to find out how this guy moves. I have ditched the jacket just so that we can see the body a little bit better. Starting off with his head sculpt, there's not necessarily a neck, it's more so just the head sculpt inserted inside the body. There's a cavity underneath his chin. It's also on a double ball peg. Looking forward to there, looking up to there before the head collides with the body, swivel and pivot side to side. The arms will hinge up to there. They will go forward and back, but when you move them forward, they tend to swivel out a little. There's a butterfly joint at the shoulder that also hinges up and down. While there's no swivel at the bicep, there is swivel at the elbow, and it's a single bend. For the wrist peg, it's a hinge and swivel, plus it's on ratchets. Surprisingly, even though he is quite rotund, and this is solid sculpted plastic under the outfit, you do still get a little bit of range from the upper torso. It is mostly just swivel. The legs will swivel out more so than forward, but you can also actuate them on a separate joint up there at the hips, so they will go properly out. Combined, you can get them to go forward, but you will have to rely on the knee joint as well, which is a single bend and there's a swivel incorporated there. Then, interestingly enough, there's another hinge and swivel above the boot, so maybe this is the way around going with these solid sculpted boots. No need for a split cut boot design, as long as you have a joint above the boot itself. So it will hinge forward and back, swivel, and you get some ankle tilt. Wrapping up on the Eternal Toys Gentleman of Crime, aka Danny DeVito's Penguin based off his appearance in Batman Returns. This is a really solid offering. He might not be perfect. There are a couple of things like the glossiness of the head sculpt and the material choice there that put me off a bit, but everything else I'm on board with. The fact that he's weathered from head to toe, has a custom body, you get two penguins, and you get an umbrella and the little salmon, all of that stuff is just icing on the cake. The sheer accuracy of this guy alone sells him to me. I can forgive the weird material choice on the head sculpt because he was wearing a lot of makeup and prosthetics, so looking a bit glossy, I don't think is the end of the world. And if it really bothers you that much, you can either repaint it or you can use some baby powder, like I said earlier, to dull down the shine. So at the end of this, am I satisfied, or will I be on the hunt for a custom version of a Danny DeVito penguin? I am satisfied. If another third-party company decides to tip their hat in the ring, or if Eternal Toys decides to make another version now that they already have this body, I'll pick it up, we'll review it, and we'll see which one is superior. But right now, you could do a hell of a lot worse than Gentleman of Crime here. You will have to do a bit of futzing, even though he looks completely disheveled, and the coat can be a little bit tricky to work with the wires, and it's a fuzz and lint magnet. That all works in his favor. This guy looking as feral as possible, that just lends to the accuracy of how grimy and dirty he looked in Batman Returns. What I'm trying to say is, yes, I am more than satisfied with my Eternal Toys Gentleman of Crime. Now, I got mine as a review sample from Eternal Toys, organized by 16kit. I have popped the link to Kit's site in the description below, for your reference purposes only. This is by no means a promotional video, this is a review. As always, all opinions have been 100% my own. I have not been asked to only say good things. If you are heading down to the description, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next video.